So what do you think, Noel? Better movie version of a Stephen King story, this or Maximum Overdrive?
Ooh, that's interesting. I guess it depends how you define better. I think Maximum Overdrive is a more ridiculous movie than this, and that's saying a lot, I think.
That's true. All I know is these guys absolutely nailed what 2019 was going to look like, huh?
I thought that was really funny. The 2017 or 2019 future in the tag there. This is where we're going.
It's exactly how it went 5 years ago. I'm sure of it. Yeah. Welcome to Bad Movies and Beer. I'm Cooper.
And I'm Nolan.
And today we are not discussing Sergeant Kabuki Man NYPD, which we were supposed to. We're still going to do it. We had a little scheduling issue. So instead, we are talking about The Running Man.
Yeah, Arnold, back on the podcast again. It's been a little while.
It's been a long while. We did Pumping Iron as like a bonus episode, and that felt so long ago. And even that, not a real Schwarzenegger movie, is more of a documentary. So I feel like this has been long overdue. I love Arnold. I think we all do.
Yeah, he is just perfect material for a podcast about bad movies, but also incredibly enjoyable. It's sort of kind of who he is as a career, right?
Oh God, yes. I've often referred to him as like the closest human version of a cartoon character we will ever see. And I feel like he lives up to that in a couple of places here. And we're going to cover all of that. But before we do, of course, as always, we have paired the movie up with a beer. This is a pretty decent connection, I feel. What are we drinking today, Noel?
Yeah, I agree. This is a good connection. We're watching The Running Man, and we're going to be drinking The Border Run. This is a cream ale by Dawson's Trail Brewery. Dawson's Trail is out of Thunder Bay, Ontario. So despite being in the same province as us, it's a large or a long plane ride or drive away from us. They make lots of traditional stuff, but then they also make a whole bunch of IPAs in different styles. I had the Mad Carver West Coast IPA and really liked it. I'm excited to try this one. It's going to be probably more down your alley than mine, and because it's a cream ale. Reading about the beer a little bit, it says that it is brewed with ale yeast, though, rather than with the traditional yeast of a cream ale. So I thought that one might be interesting. I'm expecting it to be malty, expecting it to be well-balanced. So I don't know. We'll have to crack into this. You ready?
All things I enjoy. Yeah, let's do it. After the TriStar Pictures logo, we get some delightfully pixelated 1980s credits alongside a faceless animation of several muscular men running. Before the screen turns red and a crawl tells us that by 2017, the world economy has collapsed. Food, natural resources, and oil are in short supply. A police state divided into paramilitary zones rules with an iron hand. All art, music, and communications are censored, and no dissent is tolerated. Sounds like my honeymoon.
Which, the no dissent part or all the censoring of the
all
things
of it,
you
man.
get to watch? Yeah. Man, the graphics here are hilarious. It is taking me back right away to early computer animation. Pretty funny. Feels like old school 8-bit video game kind of thing that pops out here. Already, it's reminding me of a lot of other sort of science fiction-esque future scenarios. I'm getting Hunger Games or Battle Royale kind of ideas popping into my head here, wondering what this is going to look like. This is my first time seeing it, so obviously I know kind of where we're setting this up. I assume Arnold's going to be the one on the run. I don't know a lot else, though, going into this.
Yeah, I had the exact same thought about the similarities between this and other dystopian future movies. The ones you mentioned obviously came later, but there are some around the same time period where I'm like, this is just this is just that. I kind of feel like they all sort of overlap, and that'll come up when we get to our ratings at the end. The most important piece of information we're given in this crawl, though, besides the fact that a small resistance movement has managed to survive underground, is that television is controlled by the state, and a sadistic game show called The Running Man has become the most popular program in history. And it ends with a statement that when high-tech gladiators are not enough to suppress the people's yearning for freedom, more direct methods become necessary. You think there's any chance those more direct methods will involve using a helicopter to murder innocent civilians, or?
I didn't have that one put together yet. We were making fun of sort of 2017 already about how like they're predicting what it's going to look like. The one thing that it feels like they're fairly accurate on, though, is the impact of reality television on the consumption of people, right?
Oh, for sure. There's a couple of predictions that are actually pretty decent in here, which is, I think, like the mark of good sci-fi. Or maybe you just get lucky. I don't know. But no, man, we cut right away to this like helicopter shot, like zooms right in, and there's immediate trouble. This helicopter was sent to check out a disturbance, which it turns out is a massive riot over the limited food supplies of this dystopian future. When orders come in from HQ to kill the rioters, the helicopter pilot points out that the crowd is unarmed and includes several women and children. But the powers that be will not be deterred, so the pilot has to take matters into his own hands.
The hell with you. I will not fire on helpless people.
And in case you couldn't tell from the voice, that helicopter pilot is Arnold Schwarzenegger.
So we knew he had to get inserted into the story early here. And here he is, military hero, unwilling to follow the orders of the government. And we know now that that's probably not going to go well for him. The other members of his military force, they sort of overpower him after a battle inside the plane. He does manage to punch a couple of them in the face and cause some damage before he is knocked unconscious by one of the other men. So he's in shit now, right? We know that this isn't going to go over well. We're expecting maybe some prison, or maybe he's going to have to get inserted into this state-controlled game. I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, despite being the preeminent action star of the 80s and a 7-time Mr. Olympia winner, Schwarzenegger is unable to fight off 3 highly trained soldiers inside of a moving helicopter. So we jump forward to the Wilshire detention zone some 18 months later, where he's doing painstaking manual labor with an explosive restraint collar wrapped around his neck. What we quickly learn, though, is that a group of prisoners have been waiting for a chance to escape, and we know that when that moment comes, Arnold will be right in the middle of it.
Yeah, this work camp is not very nice, right? They have those necklaces on that if they leave the zone, they're going to have their heads explode, and the guards are not holding back. The guards here, though, are introducing us to more details about the Running Man. They're talking to each other about if they saw the show last night, and we find out, too, that betting on the show is a big deal. So it seems like it's something that all of the citizens of this world are pretty into, other than the ones who are forced to be in it, of course.
Oh, yeah, it's a huge fucking deal, as we'll see later on. They start this sort of escape plan by Arnold staging a fight with Yaphet Kotto is the actor who we've seen in some other stuff. And they kind of, it's one of those things where they start fighting, so the guards come in and they turn on the guards, and it's a whole thing. And we get our first nice Schwarzenegger line here when he confronts a guard on a catwalk. He says, "Give you a lift," before picking him up and throwing him over the side of the ground below. I chuckled. But things from there quickly descend into chaos with bullets flying everywhere, fistfights, and people falling off ladders as Schwarzenegger desperately tries to buy time for one particularly tech-savvy inmate to deactivate the security perimeter. Now, this process ends up taking a while, as the guy and a guard at a computer are basically just going back and forth, switching the perimeter off and back on again. And as the anticipation builds, one inmate named Chico gets a little too excited and decides to make a break for it in what is just a textbook case of premature decapitation. I hear it affects around 30% of men.
Oh man, I did not expect a erection dysfunction joke to come through that section, but I like it. Decent effect here, right? Looked
so
realistic.
Too, yeah.
It was pretty good. So I guess well done there. We're still getting that tech battle, one guy turning them on and off until eventually someone is able to shoot the guard who is taking them out, and then they are able to eventually turn off those sort of borders that make their necks explode, and they do escape out of there. So the movie's over, right? We're heading off to freedom.
What do you mean? No, they're on the run, and not for the last time. With the perimeter fully deactivated, they make a break for it, and the next time we see our 3 main prisoners, Arnold and Yaphet Kotto and the guy who was good with computers, they're in Los Angeles trying to make contact with the underground resistance, which they do in short order. A resistance scientist removes their restraint collars, although he wasn't going to take off Schwarzenegger since he recognized him as a former trooper who imprisoned several members of the resistance and allegedly murdered all those people in that riot. They argue back and forth for this for about a minute before Arnold drops the hammer on him and his piddling little resistance.
All I've seen is a bunch of low foreheads who think they can change the world with dreams and talk. It's too late for that. If you're not ready to act, give me a break and shut up.
And all I could think of here was, did he just alpha his way into becoming the leader of the resistance?
Yeah, he basically told them to shit or get off the toilet, right? That was one of those, like, you're just dragging ass here. You better get into action. Either fucking blow my head off or don't. And you're right, it seems like they're willing to now have him lead the resistance, but he's not interested in that, right? He's not into politics. He's into survival.
Yeah, no, he has no interest in joining the resistance, let alone leading it. Instead, he's got a plan to get out of the city with his brother and start a new life somewhere else. But since that would completely wipe out the rest of this movie from ever happening, I'm pretty sure it's not going to work out. Doesn't seem likely.
Yeah, you don't think it's going to end right now before we get that chance to see him in this famous Running Man game. I found this part a little bit challenging because it was so predictable that he was going to be in the game. We know that there's no movie here. One of the knocks, I think, on this thing is it is fairly paint by numbers. They have to hit certain beats to make it happen. So there's not a lot of tension with regard to whether he's going to get out safely or escape or whether these things are going to happen. But we do get kind of a funny setup here as we get transitioned into more information about the game show itself. And also we see Arnold trying to go find his brother.
We are going to get to Arnold's inevitable capture in a moment. It is, like you said, a very paint-by-numbers setup here. But first, we're going to meet our other main characters, starting with Damon Killian, the host of the Running Man show, played by former Family Feud host Richard Dawson. That's kind of neat. And then, in his brother's apartment, we meet our romantic interest, played by Maria Conchita Alonso. And after she returns home from work and turns the TV on to work out, we meet the man who Schwarzenegger will no doubt be on a collision course with as we move through this movie, the most legendary stalker in the history of the Running Man TV show, Captain Freedom, played by Jesse the Body Ventura with hair, which is really disorienting.
That's fair. I was excited to see it was Jesse the Body. I even thought it was pretty funny the way they introduce him to us in the movie, leading an exercise class for ladies.
Yeah, man.
Oh, man. So there's a lot here. The Killian character, the leader of this game show, he's a producer, but he's also the on-show host. Really well done. I knew that I recognized the person doing it. I didn't realize that he was a game show host, and it makes sense why he's able to work the crowd so well. And I think that he develops quite a good character here that you really don't want to root for. They make him a strong asshole who only cares about the game show working well. He does want to have Arnold in this game, right? And we're going to hear more about that later. But, man, it's interesting to see that build up. When Arnold heads to his brother's apartment, we meet the other character. Her name is Amber in the show, but we didn't find that out for like another 45 minutes. They don't even introduce
it takes
her
a
name
long time. Yeah, they don't invest a lot into the Amber character, I feel.
They really don't. They don't do a lot of build on her. She's just sort of the love interest that needs to be in this action movie, I guess. Arnold breaks into the apartment. The first thing they show you is a Bowflex, so we're getting some product placement in here quickly.
I didn't notice
Old
that.
school 80s.
Yeah.
I guess the Bowflex is still the way that people are getting ripped in 2017 or 2019, wherever we are. Our character, though, Amber, is working out in negligee.
Yeah, man, I was going to say, they break into Captain Freedom's workout with a news bulletin that Schwarzenegger's character is in the area, which leads us to a fun sequence where he chases a hysterical Maria Conchita Alonso around her apartment while they cut back and forth to the workout show at appropriate and hilarious times. But yes, she is, in fact, wearing a black negligee here, so good times all around.
Yeah, they're just trying to, like, sneak in a little bit of TNA, I guess. It is kind of a cute scene, kind of fun seeing them move around there. He ends up capturing her and tying her to the Bowflex.
Yeah, is that product placement or what?
I don't know, but it's just this is the way that he ends
the
up.
The most interested I've ever been in a Bowflex, I'll tell you that right now.
As it's being used as a sex swig or
maybe. No, I said this scene is good times, and it is, but I'll tell you where there are not good times, and that's at the television network. They are having a hard time finding suitable contestants for the Running Man, but as you alluded to earlier, inspiration strikes Damon Killian when he sees footage of the big prison break from earlier in the movie. Dude is practically salivating over the possibility of getting Arnold in the show.
They want ratings. I can get 10 points for his biceps alone. Hello.
So he calls the Department of Justice's entertainment division, which I thought was funny, before going over their heads altogether and calling not the president, but the president's agent. You must have loved the subtle jabs at political institutions here, huh? This is like catnip for you.
I mean, it is pretty interesting to see that corporatization of politics in the United States in this version of Future History, right? So I did enjoy that kind of stuff. We know that has an impact on the way things are run now, but we won't get too political about it. But it's possible to see this kind of situation emerge from where we kind of currently exist, although I don't think people would accept it in the same way.
So Killian's got his plan for the Running Man, but Arnold's making plans of his own, namely using Amber and her government-issued travel pass to skip town. And so, after using his incredible strength to convince her, let's say, to play along, it's just a threat. He's just threatening her. The next time we see the two of them is in the airport, where Schwarzenegger manages to get them through the security line by successfully executing the linchpin of his plan. Female stereotypes. Hey, Noel, you ever notice how women can never find anything in their purse? What's the deal with that?
It was a bit of a Jerry Seinfeld joke right there as he was getting them through.
Yeah, it's like a stand-up comedy act from the 90s.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. So we get some bad stereotypes that sneaks them through here. Of course, it's a male working the other side, and he commiserates with Arnold as he lets them through onto the plane. Impatience was the other thing that made it work here because all the people behind were complaining and trying to send them through. They are on their way to the plane. It looks like they're going to make it until the Amber character takes her shot here. She screams and gets the attention of the guards and lets them know that that wanted man is here with her and they're about to get on a plane to Hawaii. Arnold goes for just an epic run through the tarmac of the airport here.
Fuck, man. That looked hilarious because of the outfit he was wearing. He's got these like white like leisure pants and this Hawaiian shirt. It looks so fucking funny. Yeah, you forgot to mention too that she punches him in the
Oh yeah,
part of her
that's
escape
right.
is just
that's how she
aggressively
escapes his deadlock. Yeah,
she calls his bluff and alerts security, and he tries to make a break for it, but at this point, cops are just swarming the airfield, chasing him down and incapacitating him with an incredibly realistic-looking net.
It was a net
maybe
gun.
The low point for the effects,
it looked like a
yeah.
Nerf product that they used, but it was big enough to wrap around Arnold when he was sprinting full speed in that Hawaiian getup. So I guess he sells that part of this maneuver, but now Arnold's captured and he's going back to that work camp, right?
Oh, fuck no. He's going directly to the network where Damon Killian tries to sell him on the idea of appearing on the Running Man show. Now, Arnold isn't buying it, but Killian's got an ace up his sleeve. 2 aces, actually. Turns out Schwarzenegger's prison pals have been captured and will be forced to go on the show in his place if Arnold refuses. That's all it'll take for him to say yes, and before you know it, Arnold's getting poked, prodded, injected, and gassed by a team of young, fairly disinterested-looking scientists. These guys do not seem super motivated in their job.
Yeah, so he's been drugged, he's been filled with, he's been gassed, so he's unconscious, and we're going to see the start of his game show, I guess, in the next day.
Well, it took about a half hour, but after a quick scene where Amber starts to realize that maybe the government isn't being totally truthful with the public, and another quick scene where Arnold Schwarzenegger meets his court-appointed theatrical agent, we finally get to see what this Running Man show is all about. And what it's all about is interpretive dance. We get what I can only describe as a combination of flash dance and showgirls as Schwarzenegger is escorted in the studio in handcuffs and leg irons, and we also see popular stalker Buzzsaw arriving on the premises before Damon Killian makes his grand entrance. Who loves you, Noel, and who do you love?
This is all a lot, right? The setup for the TV show, the dances, choreography by Paula Abdul.
Paula Abdul? I saw that in the credits too. That's crazy.
I thought that was hilarious. The way they introduce the stalkers, it really reminds me of WWF wrestling, right? We're definitely playing...
Like 80s wrestling.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like early 1980s
the sweaty, the
wrestling.
yelling, the... Yeah.
It also made me think of American Gladiators, and I was trying to remember when that came out. Was it after this or before this? Was there a connection or inspired by that too?
Ooh, great question. It has that vibe for sure. Even like Ventura's costume, the Captain Freedom costume is a little American, more than a little. It's a lot like American Gladiator, so.
Yeah, if you know out there, if you are a big fan of American Gladiators, you can tell us whether there's some inspiration from here. I definitely think there's a connection there.
I feel like we could just Google it. It's probably that hard to Google. Let's not put this on the one in the audience. We'll find the answer ourselves to that one. Thanks, though. We do get a cool sequence here when they introduce Schwarzenegger. They show us and the audience the scene from the start of the movie, only in true propaganda fashion, they've edited it to make him seem like the one who wanted to murder all those people in the riot, thus living up to his Butcher of Bakersfield nickname in the eyes of the audience. I call this a cool sequence, and it is, but if you think about it for a second, it doesn't really make sense. They're showing a scene from the movie in the movie. Like, it's one thing if they played the audio of him, like, radioing HQ, that would reasonably fit within the reality they've established here, but there's no way there were cameras inside of the helicopter during that opening scene. I mean, there were, but they were the real-life movie cameras filming this movie, so they shouldn't exist within the world of this movie? My head hurts. This does not make sense to me.
That is a lot. It actually didn't bother me. I just felt like because we were in such a police state that there were cameras everywhere. Like, I thought surveillance was just a part of how everyone in this state lived. And so I thought that footage that they shared of what had happened in that plane was just sort of like it was the footage that was there, right? Like, just something's always being recorded. I peeked at it, 1989 American Gladiator. So inspired by this? Yes.
Cool, man. Well, you know what? That's maybe a plausible explanation, or at least the most plausible explanation. And I do think, like, this is absolutely the way they would do this in real life. They would 100% crop that footage. They would flip the audio so he's the one suggesting it. It's like textbook propaganda. It's just like, for me, the logistical part of why are there the cameras? I don't know. It was a lot to wrap my head around, like I said.
That's fair.
But, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, the one thing I did notice here as we're getting into the game and we're about to see Arnold's character be thrown into the Running Man is they were not able to predict what fashion would be like in 2019.
That's always the thing.
Oh my God.
That's always the thing.
There's some of the best 80s fashion and hair in this movie, and I'm just like, watching the audience is hilarious. And I know things are cyclical.
It's never something different, right? It's never something different from the era. It's just like an advanced version of whatever the era's fashion is.
They just make it
they
sparkly.
Assume that's gonna stay, yeah.
Right? Like, let's just make it feel sparkly and future-y, but
go a complete opposite direction. Do something totally different, because then I'm like, okay, clearly time has passed, but I don't know. I know exactly what you mean. I agree. The game is about to begin. So a couple of the dancers remove Schwarzenegger's handcuffs and leg irons and take off his prison-issue jumpsuit to reveal a bright yellow bodysuit. But that isn't all that gets revealed here. Turns out Killian has pulled a fast one on Arnold and decided to throw his two prison pals into the game anyway. This prompts a familiar response from an infuriated Schwarzenegger, but Killian is right there with a cocky rejoinder.
Killian, I'll be back.
Only in a rerun.
Before he launches him into the game in a rocket-powered bobsled.
There's so much going on here, right? They're teaching us about the game. So we know now that what happens is they send the prisoners down this chute into an enclosed area that was once affected by an earthquake. And then they let stalkers, those are those gladiator types, go after them. And if they find each other, anything goes. So they're allowed to murder the shit out of each other. Most of the time, it's the stalkers who are murdering everyone.
All the time.
Yeah,
that comes up later.
true.
It's it's always a one-way street.
Well, except apparently there were 3 people who escaped, or like they lasted the time limit and they were given freedom.
Allegedly.
And we're going to find out later that that's not true. I thought it was interesting here that they dropped the "I'll be back" line, and I think that's because this comes after Terminator. They're just sort of playing 100%. On that success. And
he did it in Commando too. He did it in Commando also. We talked about it when we watched Commando way back in our very first ever episode. He's not afraid to drop it in there as a kind of a callback to his own career, which is cool.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, right? And did he insert those, or do you think it was the screenwriters who put that in there? Because this does feel like a cash-in on Arnold's popularity at the time.
I heard Stephen King insisted that no, I'm just kidding. I don't know. While all of this has been going on, something hasn't been sitting right with Amber, perhaps spurred on by her friend's earlier comments about how lucky she was not to have been killed or raped then killed, or killed then raped by Arnold Schwarzenegger's character, because let's face it, who could stop him? She decides to use her network ID and security pass to dig a little deeper into what really happened the night of the Bakersfield massacre. But she's not as sneaky as she thinks she is, and the last thing we see after a hand grabs her shoulder is her spinning around and gasping. You don't really see good gasping anymore, I feel. It's really stood out to me.
That's funny.
It's kind of an old-fashioned movie thing, I feel. You used to always see the turnaround and the gasp, and now it never happens.
So we got to work that into our future film, right? It's got to be gaspful.
There we go. So our 3 running men are now in the arena or whatever. So Killian pulls a lucky lady out of the audience to choose the first stalker to try to run them down. And it's Charlie's mom from Always Sunny. Did you notice that?
I didn't know that. That's amazing.
100%, man. It's her. Yeah, a little younger, but still very much looks the same, I feel.
Oh, my God.
She says she likes her men big and cuddly. and select Sub-Zero, who is sadly not the Mortal Kombat character, but instead a big hockey-loving Asian dude who's wearing a jockstrap on the outside of his clothes and who may also be a professor. They're just throwing a lot at the wall here, I feel, with this character.
Yeah, they weren't very nuanced, the Stalker characters. They were definitely large personalities and depictions of them. There was a lot of Asian stereotypes going out when they're introducing him, but then it threw me for a loop when he ended up on a hockey rink. Yeah, I was like, what the hell?
Strike me as one.
He must be from Vancouver, I guess, is what they're saying.
That's funny, man. Oh, man. Yeah, so he's in there. He's going to be the first Stalker. And after Captain Freedom's locker room report gets cut off by Killian, we see that somehow, despite there being 400 square blocks of what they call game zone, our 3 contestants have ended up in a big hockey arena, which is pretty convenient since Professor Sub-Zero likes hockey, as we mentioned, and is also wearing skates. Like, this was obviously a setup, but if it hadn't been and Sub-Zero had to chase these guys through the streets of LA while wearing skates, that would have been fucking hilarious.
Oh my God.
Because that awkward, like, skate shuffle.
Just tearing up his blades, he's running around. He's also wearing goalie pads, which doesn't make sense because you skate much slower with them on. If you're someone who's chasing someone down, like, we know that the running men are not armed. He doesn't need padding to protect himself, right? They're just trying to escape from him. But for some reason, he's got, like, just the weirdest outfit on. The goalie stick he has is this massive blade, though, that we know is sharp and can do some damage. So we get this scene that they've set up where he's skating around this strange hockey rink, capturing one of the guys in a net that even closes on him. And it looks like things are going bad for Arnold and his friends here.
This scene reminded me of that one from Batman and Robin. Remember we watched that? Where, like, Mr. Freeze's goons are on skates. It's the same kind of shit, man. There's exploding hockey pucks. It's just like campy cartoonishness. And as you mentioned, yes, the tech guy gets knocked into one of the goals and it closes around him, trapping him there. But in the end, Arnold is able to take down Sub-Zero by ripping some razor wire off one of the fences, then pulling it across when Sub-Zero skates by, thus clotheslining him and subsequently garroting his neck. A hush falls over the studio audience as this is the first time a stalker has ever been killed by a contestant. It's a big moment, which calls for a big line. Here's what Schwarzenegger comes up with.
Here is Sub-Zero! Now, Plane Zero!
Yeah,
that was not great.
There were some questionable lines here. They definitely throw a lot out, and if it wasn't one that I think pays homage to some of his other more popular performances, they weren't very good for me. It's interesting you brought back Batman and Robin. Now thinking about Arnold as the Sub-Zero character, it's funny that it does have such a similar feel. I bet you he reflected back on this scene when he was sort of setting up or performing in that movie.
Joel Shoemaker, I've got the great idea.
Exactly. So we do get that. We get that hush over the crowd. We now have a chaser, one of these guys for the very first time being taken down by the running men. And how are the crowd and how is Killian taking this?
Well, Killian throws it to commercial in a suitably somber way, but when he heads to his office, he has to field an angry call from the government. They are not happy about a stalker getting killed, so when a nerd from the audience can't decide between 2 stalkers for who should go next, Killian sees an opportunity to tie this thing up without any more trouble and decides to send them both. One is Buzzsaw, the guy we briefly met earlier. He's a chainsaw-wielding maniac and also last year's champion. And the other guy, well, he's a bit less impressive. Picture a human light bright who's also an opera singer. Stephen King, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, this Dynamo character is a lot. His suit is terrible. I think it's probably the worst costuming in the whole thing.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Or top 2 for sure, I'd say.
Yeah, it's really bad. He is able to control electricity, though, and to shoot it out. And so at least that's kind of interesting. Why they made him a fat opera singer, I'm not sure. I just think they wanted some flair to go along with this very bright outfit. So we got 2 of them coming in. The 3 people survived their encounter in the hockey rink, but now we know that there are 2 more chasers coming in to take them down. Anything else can go wrong here for Arnold and his friends?
Well, I was going to say, it's not just 2 more stalkers that are coming in. After Dynamo shows off his talents, we get another twist from Killian as he decides to send Amber in as a runner when he hears about her snooping around. But in order for the audience to accept this, they need to believe she's a morally reprehensive character. So as they're loading her into the rocket bobsled, they have the show's announcer run her down in a different way. Here's why she deserves to die. Cheated on her college exams, had sexual relations with 2, sometimes 3 men in a year, and lastly, fell in love with Schwarzenegger. That's it. And the people are like, yeah, kill her.
Oh my God. When they dropped the have sex with 2 to 3 men a year line, I laughed so hard. It might have been the hardest I laughed in this entire movie. It was really, really funny. Clearly, the morals of this society are being controlled by the government here. They are definitely shaming this woman for having this. And we know they're making up all kinds of things. Maybe she's not. But it's funny that was the line they pulled. It wasn't like 200 to 300 men or something. It was 2 to 3 men.
Yeah, that's all it takes. The crowd is like bloodthirsty. They want her to die.
Well, and the hilarious part is the crowd is like all retirees. Like it's all old people just cheering on for this butchery. And you're like, man. Holy shit. It does feel like an accurate game show kind of clientele, right? But it is funny to see how bloodthirsty these elderly people are. It's really funny.
It's something, all right. Anyway, back in the game zone, the prison pals are on the move when the tech guy spots a relay tower. Apparently, the Resistance has been searching for these for years but couldn't find them, as nobody ever enters this area willingly. Now that they found it, they can hack into it and jam the network, thus putting a stop to the flow of propaganda. Schwarzenegger is not on board with this, preferring they take their chances trying to escape, but when the other two run off in opposite direction, he basically sighs, does an eye roll, and is like, guys, wait up. The hero's burden, Noel.
It's funny here because he just wants to get out of here and live, but the other two obviously want to take this opportunity now to try to make the world a better place. He gets pulled along into it and they start heading there. We know, though, that very soon our 3 runners are going to connect with the stalkers and we're going to have a showdown here.
Well, not just the stalkers. I mentioned running a minute ago. In our next scene, we see Amber enter the game with some absolutely classic Hall of Fame caliber stereotypical girl running. She's screaming and her arms are flailing side to side as some guys on motorcycles like sheepdog her into the game zone, where despite having like an hour head start on her, she immediately finds the prison pals. How the hell did this happen so fast?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know that it seems like the areas they're able to move in are being kind of controlled. We know there's cameras everywhere and they have sensors on where these guys are. They keep telling these stalkers where to find them. Right, so we know that they're going to be found. Maybe they wanted to see the reaction of them getting together. Those guys who were sheepdogging or hurting her were putting her right into the hands of Arnold and his buddies. They wanted to see the reaction here. This was going to make for good television.
Well, yeah, maybe, but if she found them that quickly on foot, you better believe that it won't take long for 2 stalkers on motorcycles to show up, and show up they do, much to the delight of Jim Brown, a former stalker who's watching from the network offices, and who, like Jesse the Body Ventura, is also wearing a ridiculous hairpiece. Dude looks like a skunk. I don't know why this bothered me so much, but I guess things could be worse. I could be getting slowly dragged behind a motorcycle.
So I recognized that this was an ex-NFL running back, so I kind of got that idea, and they even make some running back jokes when we get to meet him later. His hair did not bother me in the same way it did you, though, so I think that's kind of funny. The chasers here, the stalkers, have caught up to Arnold and his friends, and Arnold does get bowled. He gets wrapped up by the one, and he's being dragged around in this arena. And it's not looking so good for him, and the crowd is really into it. They're loving seeing this evil man, right? This character, Ben Richards, getting dragged around and sort of put in his place by the stalkers. So we know that things are over for Arnold here, right? About to end this movie.
You've said that like 3 different times, and of course that is not what's going to happen at all.
I have to. It's so paint by numbers that I'm just going to keep leading into it. You know, every time one of these things gets set up, we're just waiting for the way for him to like build back up and take down the people who are against him.
Well, yeah, man. They cut to close-up shots of Arnold being dragged behind the motorcycle, and it really doesn't seem like he's that bothered by it. Like, he's kind of grimacing, but I have to believe in real life that would hurt a lot more. And speaking of things that hurt, Schwarzenegger manages to get free of Buzzsaw's cable and loop it around a post, which causes him to get launched off the bike and take a rough landing. Now, he is not down for the count yet, though, as he wakes up just in time to stop Arnold from picking up his chainsaw, which leads us into some hand-to-hand combat. And because there's a chainsaw, of course they end up doing the test of strength thing where they're pushing it back and forth towards each other while it's running. Buzzsaw thinks he's got the advantage and is not afraid to say so.
I love the saw. The saw's part of me. And I'm gonna make it part of you.
Now, he may love the saw, but Schwarzenegger loves irony, so he jams it up into Buzzsaw's nether regions, resulting in a gruesome yet hilarious death.
Yeah, this battle is actually kind of entertaining as they're grappling. Again, it's fairly obvious about what's going to happen, but the shots of it and the way that they're working it through and the lines that they're delivering are effective. I don't believe for a second, though, that Arnold's about to get chainsawed, and as we expect, he turns it around and sends that spinning blade right up into the nutsack of Buzzsaw. The scream we get as it's going through his lower region
That's what
is
makes it
fantastic.
so funny. It's like a high-pitched...
He does yell, and as he's yelling, it changes octaves, as you're supposed to get the sense that his nuts have been ripped off, and you're just, oh my god. It was a pretty funny ending to it. I laughed a lot at the octave change during that chainsawing of his balls.
Yeah, he's been castrated. He's a fucking falsetto now. But while this has been going on, the tech-savvy prisoner has successfully hacked into the relay and decoded the network signal. He makes Amber memorize the code in case one of them doesn't make it out alive, which it turns out was a really smart move, since the light bright guy shows up and immediately electrocutes him. Amber makes a break for it, but he zaps her as well, just a little bit, but it's still enough to get Schwarzenegger's attention when he hears her scream. When Arnold arrives, he gets chased away by Dynamo as Flight of the Valkyries plays. What else? Since Dynamo is in a car, it should not take him long to run Schwarzenegger down, but Arnold manages to get him to roll the car because of the uneven terrain and piles of rubble. Now, trapped beneath the wreckage and with no power, Dynamo screams for Killian to cut to commercial as Arnold slowly approaches. And at that moment, with the eyes of the world on him, the question is, will Arnold Schwarzenegger kill a helpless man?
Of course not.
Boo! Boo! The audience hates this. They wanted him to murder that guy.
Yeah, they really did. He doesn't kill him. We know that Arnold's not going to take this guy down when he can't fight back, so... in some ways, you're like, you probably should have just to help you get out of here, right? Like, as a survivalist, you might have done it. But as someone who knows this is on TV and wants to maybe clear his name with the people, this is a good choice. We do get a line here, though, about Buzzsaw.
Oh, fuck.
Arnold delivers it
he
here.
had to split or something? I don't remember. There's some sort of...
Yeah. He says, he had to split. And you're like, oh, fuck.
Yeah,
another one of these bad lines. Yeah,
I thought most of them were pretty good, but there are some duds for sure. Now, we both forgot to mention, but Yaphet Kotto got tagged by Buzzsaw in that last scene, so we get a tearful goodbye as he urges Schwarzenegger to get Amber and the code to the Resistance so they can finish the job and bring this police state down. The emotions don't stop there, though, as Killian patches in a direct call to Schwarzenegger to offer him a contract as a stalker should he be willing to switch sides. And how does Arnold respond to that?
You cold-blooded bastard. I live to see you eat that contract. But I hope you leave enough room for my fist because I'm going to ram it into your stomach and break your goddamn spine!
God damn it. I love that, man. What a talent.
I guess Arnold doesn't want to be a stalker.
Apparently not. No, his fucking reaction here. This is the cartoon thing I was talking about. This is a complete cartoon character reaction. Fucking love him. Goddamn.
This was really funny. I enjoyed his response to that. The fact that he went so hard. We knew he wasn't going to take that contract. He's a genuine guy here trying to work back into the sort of love of the people. And guess what? People are starting to be on his side. They're starting to root for him. And they might even start placing some bets on him soon because we're going to get some more stalkers into the arena here, into the Running Man arena. And who is going to go down next?
Well, that's the thing. Damon Killian is in some real hot water now. The Attorney General is blowing up his phone. And as you pointed out, yes, the audience is starting to turn in favor of Schwarzenegger. So he's got to find someone who can take him down. And it's Jim Brown who gets the call. Fireball is his stage name. And he literally flies into the game zone thanks to an extremely low-budget jetpack. But that's not all he's armed with. He's also bringing along his trademark flamethrower and a shiny chainmail suit. I got excited when I first saw it because I thought it was just mesh, and I was like, holy shit, is he wearing a full-body Mungo Jerry shirt? No luck, though.
Oh my god, I would have loved that, but no, it wasn't a full-body suit. I actually thought the jetpack was kind of interesting. I like that they included
god, man, come on. It looks, you can only go straight up. Real. It's bullshit. No, I was gonna say.
It didn't look real, no, but I did enjoy that he was getting in there. We get a really funny scene here where Killian is talking to the audience, and in particular Agnes, one of the older ladies there, and he asks her, who's going to get the next kill, I think she says. Is it going to be Fireball or is it going to be Dynamo? And she says,
Ben Richards. That boy's one mean motherfucker.
Yeah, man, she chooses Schwarzenegger. That does not go over well.
oh, I laughed so hard at her delivery of that one mean motherfucker line. Just seeing that kind old lady drop the F-bomb was really funny.
Yeah, for sure. Fireball, as it turns out, does not last long. He ends up getting blown up thanks to his flamethrower's fuel tanks and a road flare Schwarzenegger grabs, but not before he reveals the secret of the Running Man winners to Maria Conchita Alonso. The secret? There are no winners. Even the contestants who successfully escape are subsequently murdered, not allowed to live on a tropical island as the public is led to believe. Now, this would be a real downer if it wasn't for the line Schwarzenegger fires off before blowing him up.
How about the light?
That one's all right. Come on.
I thought it was sweet that old lady was right. Richards is the one who gets the next kill, and a lot of people win and lose some money on that one. Who do they got to call out of retirement now to jump in the game and solve this for them?
Well, fuck, yeah. They are just running out of stalkers now, and Killian is getting increasingly desperate. But he's still got one more ace left up his sleeve. Captain Freedom. And so, while the showgirls are doing like a sexy in memoriam dance for the fallen stalkers, he summons Jesse the Body Ventura to the studio and arms him with some fancy robot weapons. And by fancy robot weapons, I mean some shitty silver stuff that was made out of tin. The body feels the same way as he throws it off for telling Killian,
I was killing guys like this 10 years ago with my bare hands. I'm not going for any of these tricks. This is a sport of death and honor. Go to the gladiators.
And I guess he actually refuses to do it because Killian has to go to plan B. And I want to give Stephen King or whoever wrote this screenplay a lot of credit here because they have 100% predicted how fight scenes were going to be produced in the future. They're going to use CGI.
Yeah, absolutely. Good prediction here. This funeral dance that the ladies are doing for the dead stalkers is really weird, and I'm having trouble with it. I don't understand it. They're all dressed in black, like, and it's somber and strange.
Disturbingly sexy. Or not sexy, what am I trying to say? It's disturbing that they're making a funeral dance sexy. They're kind of wearing the same stuff that Amber's wearing when she's working out earlier. It's like black negligees.
Yeah, it's really strange. I was struggling with that interjection there. I didn't know why that was necessary either. But we do get now a, like you said, quite well done CGI setup of them taking out Arnold and Amber. Well, not them, but Jesse the Body's character, right? Captain Freedom. But we know that that's not true. What's actually happening to them here?
Well, yeah. First of all, we don't get actual CGI from this era, like from the 80s, although that would have been fucking hilarious. Instead, it's just the actors fighting, but we're like told it's CGI. And yeah, in that CGI battle, Captain Freedom straight up murders both Amber and Arnold Schwarzenegger. But of course, the real Amber and Arnold have successfully reached the Resistance and delivered the code that will allow them to hack into the network signal. Now, the leader of the Resistance, that scientist from earlier, who I don't think we ever mentioned, is played by Mick Fleetwood from Fleetwood Mac. Did you notice that?
I didn't know who it was. It felt like they had aged them inappropriately. Like there was bad aging makeup on them. I noticed that, but I didn't realize it was Mick Fleetwood. That's funny.
Yeah, man, it's Fleetwood Mac's drummer. Anyway, it is, and also namesake, I guess. What am I saying? The fucking drummer. He assumes that Schwarzenegger will be leaving, but instead, Arnold decides to stick around and join the fight. After all,
I told Killian I'd be back. I wouldn't want to be a liar.
Yeah.
Yeah, so instead of wanting to leave and just go on his sort of freedom quest, we now know that Arnold has survived. The Running Man is going to now lead the Resistance's attack on the studio, because it seems like the studio is the place where the government's control lies. They need to go and attack so that once the Resistance takes over the signal, it can't be changed at studio level, right? They're going to have to go take over the studio gear. Why they didn't just take over the studio and send the correct information from there, I'm not sure. Like, I don't know why they needed this signal to then take it over to then go take, like, physically go to the studio. That didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't really understand either. In fact, some of the choices they make about where and when to do stuff doesn't totally line up, but whatever. I'm not, who knows? It's a dystopian future. You and I don't live in an era with this actual technology.
We're going to get the final push here, right? We're going to get the final push. He will be back.
That's right. Killian is completely oblivious to all of this. He's celebrating a ratings triumph with his less than enthusiastic crew, but I bet he'd be a whole lot less happy if he knew it was about to go down. Not only is the Resistance about to break into their signal, but thanks to Amber, who somehow managed to smuggle out the Bakersfield footage, they're also about to blow the lid off the whole government. And at this point, I'm sure you and I and Arnold Schwarzenegger are all wondering the same thing. Where did she manage to hide that thing with the footage on it?
I don't know. It's true. It was big.
Kind of like one of those like smaller floppy disks they used to have for computers back then, the hard ones.
But it is large.
Yeah.
I don't know where she would have put that. It obviously was in her underwear. That's the only place.
In her underwear or like in her, underwear. You know.
That might have been the only place to keep it safe.
Schwarzenegger asked her. He asked her. He's like, where did you hide that? And she just kind of like, was like, don't worry about it. Kind of gives a little smile. I'm like, what does that mean?
I missed that.
Oh my God, did you really?
Realize she was hiding that sensitive data inside
She's
of
just
herself,
like, oh, don't worry.
Yeah.
It was somewhere. You'll find out. Well, it's on now as the Resistance breaks into the signal, breaks into the studio, and reveals the truth to not just the studio audience, but the entire world. And we get a big shootout now between the Resistance and Killian security, while that Dynamo guy, who has clearly not learned anything from having his life spared by Arnold Schwarzenegger, tries to get his revenge on Amber by killing and/or raping her. But I was thinking here, revenge for what? Not letting him kill her in the game? This guy's a fucked up value system.
Yeah, that guy is useless for sure. When they sort of break in there, I don't know what it is, but Arnold is peak Arnold here in terms of size and performance. You get one shot of him standing sideways and his arms are just incredibly big. You're just like, he is so massive. Nobody is going to stand in his way as they go and attack the studio. Amber's looking like she's in a lot of trouble, but she uses her brains to outwit this guy. She shoots the ceiling and it lights up the sprinklers, and that sprinkler short circuits the Dynamo character and he gets zapped to death.
Yeah, she also kicks him in the So many shots in this movie for some reason. There's a lot of Stephen King working through something here, I feel.
You think that was Stephen King, or do you think that was director choice?
Oh, good point. Could have been, yeah. Our screenwriter was like, we need here another shot. Act 3. Time for another, yeah.
Shots are funny.
They
are funny. It did
agree.
seem like it was that character who was delivering most of them, though, right? Yeah. Amber was the shot queen.
Good for her. Listen, if you're going to fight a man, that's the fastest way to victory.
So they've got the video to air.
Right in the crotch. Yeah.
They got the video to air.
Yeah, the studio is all cleared out now. But Killian is still there, sneaking around, hoping not to be noticed. But we know this movie is not going to end without Arnold giving this guy his comeuppance, which he does after a brief tease of a fight we don't get between Schwarzenegger and Killian's mountain of a bodyguard. See, because he insulted him earlier, the bodyguard just walks on Killian, which lets Schwarzenegger have his way with him. But of course, in true game show host fashion, Killian tries to smooth talk his way out of it with a big speech about how the only thing he's guilty of is giving the people what they want. Arnold, though, tells him that what he thinks the audience would want is Killian in the game, so he tosses him to a rocket bobsled and sends him off with a nice pair of end lines.
Drop dead! I don't do requests.
And then, after Killian's bobsled flies up the track and explodes after hitting a billboard with its own picture on it.
Well, that hit the spot.
That was delightful.
It is funny that they make him go through a picture of his own face as he crashes and explodes. I did have a good chuckle at that, and hits the spot. I missed that line. I didn't hear that one, or it didn't stand out to me, but I think that's pretty clever. More so than the I don't take requests line.
Yeah.
But so things are wrapping up here, right? He shot him off. What's the only thing that hasn't happened here that is required in an action movie like this? What do we got to do?
Well, despite the fact that they've had very few scenes together and know each other for about a day and have shown virtually no chemistry, the movie, of course, has to end with him planting a kiss on Maria Conchita Alonso, which he does while an 80s banger from John Parr blares in the background. And I have to say, great way to hit the credits. It makes no sense from a why are they kissing standpoint, but in that moment with like the lighting and the song, I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm in. Let's do it.
It was kind of a perfect 80s ending to a movie. We get the No More Lonely Nights song blaring in the background, and it is really entertaining. I love that that's the sort of chorus for it, No More Lonely Nights.
John Parr, underrated soundtrack man from the 80s. Also did St. Elmo's Fire, famously. Man in Motion was the song from that one. He's good. He's no Loggins, but he's probably like, I could see him being a distant second place to Kenny Loggins.
Wow, that's high praise, high praise. We do get the TV. We get a shot of the TV before we head to credits where it says, please stand by. It's clear like that the government has lost control of the message, and now the people will hopefully be taking back some of that. And we don't get any resolution to where they're going from this future, but we do know that change is coming.
Who knows what's going to happen next? Tune in for the sequel, Running Man 2. Electric Boogaloo. Anyway, that's it, man. We're into the credits, and just a real piece of 1980s filmmaking. I love when they try to go futuristic. So good times all around, I feel. I want to hear how you felt about this movie, though. So we should probably just transition to our ratings. The way we always do this, rate the movie on a scale of 1 to 10 two times, 1 to 10 for how bad it is, 1 to 10 for how enjoyable, and the goal is to find movies that are a 10 out of 10 on both scales, or what we call the Crit 20. And for me, I thought this was a pretty good premise overall, although I do feel, like I mentioned, that all dystopian future sci-fi movies tend to overlap to some degree. Like, there's a lot of Escape from New York in this, definitely some They Live, or wait, when did They Live come out? Maybe it's the other way around. Maybe They Live came out right after this, but like, again, it kind of blurs together because it's similar sort of beats and a similar thing. Either way, though, just a great vehicle for Schwarzenegger, and he gives what I feel is an underrated Schwarzenegger performance. Maybe the reason it's not held in such high regard is the costumes, because some of them are pretty ridiculous, or the fact that other than Damon Killian, it feels like all the characters in this are real thin, Schwarzenegger included. Like, what do we know about him besides the fact that he won't kill innocent people? Not much, right? He has a brother. That's kind of it. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I mentioned Killian a second ago. What a performance by Richard Dawson here. Like, hats off to the casting director. By far the best performance in the movie, in my opinion. Now, Maria Conchita Alonso, on the other hand, nothing against her performance. I just felt like she didn't have a lot to do. In fact, I'm pretty sure you could remove her character from the movie completely and it would still work fine, as long as you find another way to get the Bakersfield footage to the Resistance, because other than that, she doesn't really do anything. And again, not her fault, just speaks to how thin the characters were, and of course, the limited roles available to women at that time. I don't know a lot more to say. Like, I thought the effects were actually pretty good, other than the jetpack, which I thought was complete horseshit. And this movie pretty much delivered the action that anyone going to see it would have expected. So despite the paper-thin characters and laughable costumes, I only have this as a 7 bad.
All right. That's fair. My first time seeing it. So it was interesting to me. I did feel like the predictability of it and the lack of sort of suspense was a bit of a knock on it. Like you, I also had problems with the character creation. I thought the story itself was okay, but the amount of time they spent making you care about or understand the characters was pretty thin. Everyone, for the most part, was overacting. Like, it went really far. There was not a lot of subtlety in any of the stalkers or really any of the roles in general, right? They all took it pretty far. I do think the casting for Killian was really well done. Dawson was interesting, and I can talk about that when I get to my enjoyability. I thought some of the action sequences were a little long or didn't have quite the payoff I wanted, but I did like a lot of the kills, and the effects for the endings for many of the stalkers in here were pretty fun. I actually only had this as a 7 bad, despite the lack of character development and how predictable it was. It did hit all the notes I thought it should, so I had this as a 7 bad.
That seems reasonable, yeah, but how enjoyable did you have it on a scale of 1 to 10?
I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I thought the concept, although being similar to many other things, Escape from New York is a good comparison there. We've seen lots of stories since then that I think borrow from ideas that were done in the 70s and 80s too. I felt like a lot of it was overdone, but that made it fun, right? I feel like Killian Dawson's performance was way over the top, but actually quite good. All the stalkers were played up, but a lot of fun. Arnold is doing his thing. I felt like he was slow to get into it. The start of the movie for me and some of the lines delivered there were not as strong as other performances that I've seen him in, but I feel like he hit his stride as we got to the action and combat parts of the movie. The choreography and the weird game show itself was kind of interesting. And the fact that it holds up okay despite the clothing and some of the other predictions, but a lot of the stuff they predicted in it still came through. I had a lot of fun with this. It was interesting. I had it as a 9 enjoy.
God damn it.
Oh, no.
The exact same fucking ratings. I hate when this happens.
Fuck.
No, man. I agree with a lot of what you said, so I won't really add to it. Love Schwarzenegger. Love him in this. Good action and effects for the most part, like I said. The Richard Dawson performance was great, and the movie's commentary on both the media and like viewing audiences, pretty relevant, I feel, today. Like you were saying, with like reality TV and stuff, and I think like very accurate for sort of the way that technology ended up going. The costumes, as I already said, were pretty cringy. Some of them, like Captain Freedom and Fireball, were like hilariously so, but the Light Bright guy went too far for me. I guess my only real complaint is that other movies have done this better. Escape from New York is a great example that I would rather watch Escape from New York than this anytime. But I love Schwarzenegger, and I will ride or die with him always. So I have this as a 9 for enjoyable as well. Yeah, I had a good time with this, man. I'm glad you did too. For a first ever viewing, wow.
Yeah, the tone is funny, right? Because they do make it over the top and entertaining despite how dark the actual concept is, which is very different than some of the other ways this has been dealt with. So maybe that's why it helps in some ways with enjoyability, but it does make me question my morality a little bit there. How about this?
Your morality?
I don't know. Or the morality of people who made it. Well, I enjoyed it, though, which is, I don't know what that says about me. How about this beer, though? How did you feel about Border Run?
Oh, man, really liked it. I mentioned at the top how we haven't done a lot of cream ales for the podcast. And so it's a style that I'm not super familiar with, but it just tastes like delicious, refreshing. I do get some malt flavor there. Yeah, really easy to drink. And like a few sips in, I was just like, fuck, this is fantastic. I could definitely drink more of these. And I probably will in the future because much like yourself, I tried a bunch of the Dawson Trail beers. Really enjoyed all the ones I expected to. I had a couple of like IPAs that were not my style, but they usually aren't. But all the pale ales I tried and Pilsner, couple of lagers, like just really, really tasty. And this one I really enjoyed. So this one right up my alley, this style of beer. I may have to find some more cream ale beers now because this has kind of inspired me. Like this is a style I can really get with.
Yeah, definitely easy to drink, malt forward. I think it's interesting they use different yeast to ferment this and that they also went with a barley rather than like a corn grain, which are often in that style of lager. I think it would be fun to compare this to a couple others, do like a cream ale comparison to see if we see a difference between them. But I definitely enjoy their take on it. And the other beers I've had from Dawson's Trail were all excellent too. So if you have a chance to either visit the brewery on Thunder Bay or if you're able to order any of their beer where you live, I'd recommend you try some for sure.
Yeah, I will say right now, this is maybe a hot take, and I may come to regret this later, but we're not even halfway through the season yet. This is on my short list for top 5 beers of the season for me. I think it's a very delicious beer, really fits nicely. So, yeah, hopefully you can check out some Dawson's Trail beers because, again, we've both enjoyed many styles. So, 2 weeks from now, we're going to be getting into something that will hopefully make one member of our audience very happy that they will enjoy. We're going to have our first audience request of the season. Although, full disclosure, I may have lost track of who requested this. It was requested a while ago. Like, we're behind on this. So I'm going to kind of dig through our social media communication and see. But somebody, sometime, somewhere, requested this, and we're going to cover it 2 weeks from now. Night Beast.
Ooh, Night Beast. Color me intrigued.
I believe it is like a horror movie. There's some sort of beast and he strikes at night, but I don't know. I know very little about this. I've never seen this before, so I have like reasonably high hopes for this. The person who requested it, whoever they were, they are a listener and probably, have an idea of what we like and what works and what doesn't. So I'm, again, hopeful this is going to turn out well. I also hope that I can figure out who requested this between now and then, but if not, I apologize in advance.
It's been busy. We've had a busy couple years here, so things kind of get mixed up.
A busy couple years?
I don't know when you received this request. When did you get it? Yeah,
it was partway through last season, I believe. And we had already kind of fleshed out the rest of our like season 4 slate, so we didn't have room. And I was like, it's going to be a while.
We'll get it.
Which is my stock response now. I'm like, we'll get to it eventually. We got another one coming later on this season. Same thing. It was requested last year, and I'm like, all right, well, it's going to be like a minute, but we'll get to. We love the request. Please keep them coming. And on that note, if you have not already, please follow us on social media at the BMB Podcast on Twitter and Instagram.
Keep sending emails, thebmbpodcast@gmail.com.
Yes, we do still have room this season for requests. We're not just in a backlog. If you get us some before the end of the year, we can probably get some in there. But that's going to do it for The Running Man. Thank you for joining us for that. We hope you'll join us in 2 weeks' time for Night Beast. Until then, I'm Cooper.
And I'm Nolan.
And we'll see you next time on Bad Movies and Beer.
Keep running for the border.
A game nobody survives, but Schwarzenegger has yet to play.